It's time for another expedition into the beyond. Fill the cauldrons. I want a dangerous brew. I'm Anthony.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 157 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comics. This week, we have a nice show lined up for you. We have club discussions for Inkblot issue number 3, as well as Batman, The Adventures Continue, issue number 6. Then we're going to do a round of weekly reviews, talk about the books that are both new and old. And then over in the news section, we have part 2 of our preview for the items that are coming out in January and beyond. Okay, club discussion first for Inkblot issue number 3. The cat befriends a sea monster, and the two venture into the realm of the depths. Sorcerers have become sea folk, living peacefully in floating kingdoms upon the endless ocean. The piece ends with the arrival of an unlucky cat. All right. Inkblot is the series. It is done by Emma Kubert as well as Rusty Glad from Image Comics. We met our narrator of the story in the first issue, who is the working in the library and is kind of cataloging and writing down all of the history and the wars and everything that's going on in her world. And she dumped over an inkwell, and that ink turned into a cat, and the cat opened up portals of reality, and they jumped through many different adventures. And this is yet another adventure which the cat is basically missing. We get the narrator going, talking about not really knowing where the cat is. And there's a great line in here saying that it could be anywhere across the realms, wreaking untold mischief and havoc. And what was the cat doing? Nothing but just taking a nap in a flower bed. So this whole issue is once again focusing on the cat, kind of entering a different type of world, as the preview said, meeting a sea monster, running into some pirate folk and some sorcerers, and there was a lot of fun stuff going on in here. But ultimately, it is a team up between this possible Loch Ness monster, so to speak, the sea monster, and our Inkblot cat hero. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and discuss issue number 3, talk about the things that we liked, have any questions, what you didn't like, whatever. Is there anyone that wants to tip over the inkwell first, if you will?
All right. I love this. I want to be there. This huge city ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those listening in the audio, there is a awesome shot here of our cat and the sea monster kind of hanging around, and the cat's riding on the back, and they come up through the water, and there's just this giant pirate ship world. It looks like a little town on a pirate ship, and it's it's pretty well detailed, a pretty sweet drawing there.
Very handy for Waterworld.
Yeah, and once they come across these pirates, we see that there's this whole other thing going on, a bunch of magic and war going on within the ship. So our heroes, if you will, are sort of just bystanders, and they just kind of get caught into the action, as we've been seeing with the Inkblot cat. But yeah, I really dug the giant splash page of where we see, I guess we'll just call the character Nessie for the sake of what we're all talking about here. But wide open shot there, just awesome detail, and just an awesome splash page. But yeah, this getting the narrator in the beginning here. Do we have any thoughts on if and when we'll see this narrator again?
Now, is this the girl from the beginning in the library?
Yep, she's talking about her siblings kind of going on, like ruling these kingdoms and the wars and stuff, and she's left to write it all down, basically, and she's kind of wondering, where that cat went off. So yeah,
Because she also thought. Go ahead.
This is one of her siblings, her brother, Ilvanos. who is the original captain of this ship.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't pick up on that.
Okay, because when she was talking about how she's a sorceress, I was curious if it was the gal on the ship that was talking.
No. She's wondering what the cat's doing. We get to see what the cat's doing, but she still does not know for some reason.
Yeah, I just took it that way because up until all the stuff happened, the ship and everything, you had narration, then they get to the ship, and then all of a sudden, that evil sorceress on the ship is like, there's the beast and everything, and she's obsessed with killing it. So when she's talking about it, when the narrator's talking about it, I was just thinking that maybe that was her thoughts about everything. I didn't think the girl in the library was a sorceress.
But yeah, this one is what's kind of cool about this. The structure of the story is just that everything is being told in kind of a done in one issue. Where if anyone just picked up a random issue because they dug the cover, especially with this one here with the big pirate ship and the cat nestled on the sea monster's head, that if anyone picked this up, I think there's enough adventure that's self-contained in here, following along with the cat each issue, that I think it's very acquirable for any newcomers.
I think this monster is kind of interesting too, because if you notice, they open up in upstate New York. So I think the original monster we see is supposed to be Champy, the monster from Lake Champlain.
Okay.
And then it goes into this
Yeah.
place called the Depths. The cat takes it there. And then later on, we see it come up in Scotland.
Ah, yeah, okay.
And then somebody there calls it Nessie. So is this book saying it moved, or is it saying they're the same creature?
There we go. So yeah. So if anyone goes to Scotland to try to find Nessie, they should now be watching for black cats kind of roaming around the area. So what I really like too is as we saw in a theme in the last two issues with the our cat always going meow, and now we've got the sea monster going guh guh guh. So yeah, I kind of like that, just back and forth, that the dialogue is just kind of being they kind of had the same kind of jokes going on there.
Was that supposed to be like an Atlantis thing with the creatures under the sea?
Could be. I don't know.
I don't know. You guys have all these thoughts on it. I apparently take everything different on these.
I think it just went down far enough, deep enough that it. Oh, you mean this? We
Well, I
kind of
guess
get
they're
these
talking
houses.
about burning his way through the mountainsides as he's swimming through a village of Atlantis. No,
Yeah, okay, I didn't quite catch that, but yeah, that could be as well.
no, right here. You
Yeah,
got
that's
all these
the same
houses,
page, yeah.
little mer people coming out of the houses.
Murr from Impractical Jokers?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So which character is Ilvanos then?
That is her brother, who is the captain of the ship.
Yeah. So then I don't know. I got it. I gotta quit joining in on these because she's talking about her brother, and the chick got the sorceress on the ship that's his sister, his brother.
No. The narrator, the original girl from the original book, is the narrator.
Yeah, the librarian
And
girl.
she's a sister of all these rulers of all the different realms.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to read
the sorceress is just somebody who's trying to take over from him. The one on the ship, the one with one eye. The pirate sorceress is a different person.
Yeah. I just got confused because they're in the narration. She was calling herself a sorceress, so I just took it that way.
Any thoughts on this one, Katie?
Yes, I do. I love this book. It's like someone wrote a book and custom designed it for me. Beautiful book as always. I really love the concept of it being art driven. I love the idea that we're just following a cat doing what a cat does or what it imagines that it does. So it's very episodic, and I think that's a cool way to do it that pairs well with how does this inspire our art. That cat is just so cute. And I loved his new little sea monster buddy. I appreciated that. Plesiosaur. And I thought it would just be like him swimming around with his new friend, and then we have a pirate ship, so it got even better. And then a pirate fight with some magic. So I loved it. It was just so much fun. This just makes me very happy. Like on a basic level, it makes me happy. And I really enjoyed it. I hope we see some more with the narrator and her family. It does seem like they're driving towards that. But I had fun. It continues to be worth my money, and I appreciate that. And I was trying to think about the back matter in the book where they're closing the book with what's her Ms. Kubert. I don't know her first name. I'm sorry.
Emma.
Emma Kubert. Thank you. Talking about like she doesn't really consider herself a writer, and when and how do you become a writer? So I actually thought that was kind of interesting, and maybe by the time we read this next, I'll have an answer, because that was cool. But I just had fun with it. I enjoyed it. I loved it a lot. Like, keep giving me more brightly colored, all ages fantasy stories. That's just the best. So.
Yeah, and once again, if you follow her online stuff, like they have her Instagrams and all that kind of stuff on there, like she's been showing a lot of her art process and a lot of like commissions and fun warm-up stuff. She's really, I think because of this book, really kind of blowing up, that drawing some extra attention, beyond her last name being part of the Kubert family, but she's showing a lot of her art process and stuff, and she's quickly becoming a very fascinating follow when it comes to an artist. But
Sweet.
yeah,
I will look up her Insta.
But yeah, that's something I'm definitely going to, I could see them. So I know there are a couple. I could see them, if they branch off and work on some other stuff. That I think within 3 issues of Inkblot have already kind of told me that if I see their name on something else, I'm definitely going to give it a shot, regardless of the genre and things like that. So
Definitely. Well, apparently she's done some work for DC as well. And
Yeah,
thank you for plugging her Instagram, because now I'm checking that out.
Yeah, she does some cool, like the Instagram reels, like the videos and stuff. And I know she teaches classes and stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing the online ones. I'm assuming through the Kubert school, but yeah, it's cool just to see the whole process of everything. And the book seems pretty. I mean, it's obviously pretty well received here, but I think across all the realms, it seems to be pretty well received too. Yeah, any other closing thoughts on this one? Like I said, it's mostly just, self-contained stories until we find the cat. Will most likely eventually wind up in the library again, I would assume, but we'll have to wait to find out.
Yeah, I want to go back and look at issue number 2 because we have more narration in this issue than we did in the last one, I think.
Yeah.
That might be what's throwing Kirby off a little bit too, that you kind of lost the narrator in issue number 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because, I think it was mostly being told through, the little girl or the mom or something or whatever.
Kind of, yeah, or yeah, like a omniscient third person observer, kind of thing,
Cool. But yeah, this is gorgeous. And if I had to tell them that I wanted a T-shirt of any panel in here, it would definitely be our cat riding the back through the water of the sea monster. Just such a kind of go off what Katie says. The book makes her happy, and this panel alone, I think, defines happiness.
I would do the cover where you got the same eyes.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. All right. Well, that'll do it. If there's nothing further for that issue, we will return next month for Inkblot issue number 4. I believe at this moment it is an ongoing series. What we're kind of doing as we kind of restructure how we pick some club discussion picks, which will perfectly segue into our next one. But for an ongoing comic, I mean, I'm sure we'll, if we all are enjoying it and read 50 issues of it, I don't know if we're gonna cover all 50. We'll just decide as we go on if people jump in or out, but we'll just kind of play it by ear. The next one, however, is issue 6. I would say of 6, but I think there's going to be 8 of them possibly.
There's at least 8.
What? Yeah.
At least 8.
Because when you look on the previews online, when they're talking about issue 8, it says issue 8 of 6. So, but yeah, we're talking about Batman Adventures. This is issue number 6 of the physical print. Batman's clash with Jason Todd continues as he hunts for information on his former boy wonder. Meanwhile, Alfred recounts Jason's rampage against the criminal underbelly of Gotham City and what led them to a confrontation with the Cloud Prince of Crime, the Joker. That was Jim's mask talking, and not me. That was great timing. We planned that out perfectly and seamless. That's why, once again, as a plug, you got to check out Crimson Cowl Comics on YouTube, Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast, and all that. Okay, so we are on to issue number 6. This one is mostly focusing on the history of Jason Todd, as we have Alfred explaining it to Tim Drake, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. I know each and every issue I usually have to double check my Robins, but I'm glad I got it this time around. But yeah, this issue is focusing on that, and maybe Jim will know more about this. Is this basically kind of telling almost like the Batman Adventure animated series version of like Death in the Family, sort of?
Yeah, it's this universe's version of that. This universe's version of Jason. It's kind of toned down a little bit for violence and everything, but they don't actually skip on saying, no, this is what happened, because, yeah, you see the bloody crowbar. It's just toned down a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much what the focus of this issue is here. So yeah,
they did bring Harley Quinn into that story, which was not there, but
yeah. I keep forgetting on where, because I'm reading the Birds of Prey book and just the other things, and so I always forget, like, wait, was Harley in these issues, or was that something else I just read? But yeah, we see the animated Harley, her origin, as most people know, and if you don't, that Harley Quinn was born out of the animated series, so it is good to see her show up in this issue of this continuation. But
somebody who was only meant to be a throwaway character in one episode.
And now it's just become, a phenomenon. So, with you, I think I've read Death in the Family, not enough to remember if I can even say that I've read it. That's how much I don't remember from it. So, is there anything in here that's specific that, like, that was kind of like a beat for beat thing, or like you said, it was toned down, but was there anything that was like, okay, they just took that script and turned it into a PG script, or did they throw any new elements into this that you know of?
Yeah, it's not exactly the same at all. It's just, basically hits the high points of that story that Joker kidnapped this Robin, beat him up and left him, and Batman found him. And
like Joker, got on the phone and saw all the votes come in, so he's like, all right, I guess I will kill him.
Yep. Yeah, at that time, at the end of that issue, you didn't know whether he was alive or dead until later on, so.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, in this issue, when we get all the history and kind of playing that out in a flashback mode, but what was kind of cool is I really like the moment of Alfred and Tim just kind of talking about it, and then Batman coming down to the Batcave, and things get pretty wild pretty quick once Tim Drake is very smart. I don't know how old would you think Tim is in this here?
I think he's about 12 to 14 at this time.
Okay.
Which is usually what they show him as starting his Robin career.
Yeah, the animated series version of Tim Drake always seemed to be younger than the Dick Grayson version when Dick Grayson was the Robin in the animated series.
And even younger,
older,
and even younger than what's his face from Batman Forever, Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah,
he was like 40, I think.
A little bit younger than him.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a moment when Batman comes down, and I just really like that of Tim Drake noticing, based on how Batman was speaking, that it actually wasn't Bruce under there, and he knew it because Batman. He goes, "Hold on here, I'll just read it." Batman goes, "I'll never let that happen again. Not to you, not to Barbara, not to anyone. I promise." Tim goes, I'd be a sorry excuse for a Robin to fall for this crap. And we see him take Batman down to the ground. And right away, Jason Todd, dressed up as Batman, is wondering kind of what gave him away. And he goes, more like when the Batman, when has Batman ever apologized for making a mistake? Never. So it's just kind of funny of him that's how he realized it. It wasn't like, it was obviously the tone of that delivery, the fact that he's doing that, but you would think like, oh, maybe he called me a different name or something, or, we saw that moment in the Captain Marvel movie when Nick Fury, knows that somebody's a Skrull because they called him, Nicholas or something. It was that kind of moment where Tim realized being like, oh, Batman wouldn't, own up to the mistake like that. So that was one of my favorite moments. Anyone else want to jump in with any other things they really took from this issue?
Now, I thought it was a little weird when they did the flashback scenes of Jason as Robin, that he still had the little bit of white hair.
Oh, yeah.
I was assuming that when they were showing him that it was something that came about as part of either the beating or the resurrection, but so I thought that threw me a little bit, but
maybe he got struck by lightning. Didn't that happen to Rogue, and then she had that little change in her hair in the movie or something?
Okay.
So maybe he got hit by lightning and it was the Rogue effect. But yeah, that is an interesting
So
yes,
for
Katie.
me, I really liked this issue. The last couple of pages that got me, man. That messed me up. It was like, well, now for number one, I do feel like now I have to go read Death in the Family to get a deeper appreciation for this issue and this story. And the last Tim Drake story, I got very sympathetic for Tim and Jason. This one, I'm feeling less sympathetic for. It's like you had this horrible thing done to you, and your response is to go and then inflict that same violence and pain on other people. And I'm not feeling so good about him taking out his anger at Bruce on Alfred and the current Robin. So that ending was kind of wild for me. I'm very interested to see what happens next. But yeah, still overall a really good read. Definitely inspiring me to learn a little bit more about this character and this story. But yeah, still fun. I'm looking forward to the next one, especially because now I got to see what happens.
Yeah, they've really changed the basic nature of Jason from being, instead of just kind of a juvenile delinquent, into being already unbalanced before the beating and the resurrection. Yes, he was a juvenile delinquent, but he was not necessarily that bad.
Okay.
Until after he was messed up by the Lazarus pits, which kind of turned him crazy.
Okay.
Which
I'm glad you explained that.
Which is what in normal Batman continuity is something that happens when somebody goes through one of the Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus pits. You come back kind of crazy.
Okay. I'm glad you explained that. Yeah, because this goes way beyond, petty crime and juvenile delinquency too. He's pretty cold-blooded. So no, thank you for telling me about that. I look forward to finding out
and
more.
the current Jason Todd is kind of, he's willing to be violent. He's still cares enough to have Batman's respect that he toes the line and doesn't kill most of the time, but he does use guns and he does shoot people, and he doesn't care about who he hurts as long as things are going to get done. But he does kind of hold on from crossing the line. Where here it's like we don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
But yeah, and just kind of going off of what Katie had mentioned with the end of the book there, where Jason Todd basically knocking both Alfred and Tim Drake out and dragging Tim up the stairs there, and not really leaving us an interesting point that, like Katie said, needing to read that next issue.
And with taking Tim's Robin costume with them.
So yeah, that's issue number 6. Is there any other thoughts to throw out there?
I was like, right now, this is one of my favorite DC series.
Agreed.
This and the Deceased series are my 2 favorite from DC right now. I mean, I still enjoy Batman and it's the detective, but especially right now, I don't know how it's going to go with the future state stuff coming out, but yeah, these 2, I'm glad that this one has started to continue. So
literally, because they put in the title.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that is going to do it for Batman: The Adventures Continue, issue number 6, and that'll do it for our club discussion segment of this week's show. But we've got much more coming out. I was going to say many more show for you today.
Many more
show.
Many more minutes of the show. How about that? With our weekly reviews coming up next. See, I should just stick to my scheduled script of the normal way I say things. I always try to figure, I'm like, well, I can just say a different variation of it, and then I always end up screwing it up. And then that's where the YouTube audience is just, getting this explanation. The audio listeners are just like, man, this guy's lost it. But the YouTube guys are like, oh, well, I can see what he's doing, Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with a little lib adding every once in a while.
Yes. Okay. We are actually going to do a save quick. All right. Audio recording. Find my Zoom window here. Okay. Welcome to the weekly review segment. We're going to go all the way around the internet and talk about the books that we've been reading, both new and old. This one here is super new. This is one of my most anticipated titles over the last couple months since I saw it in previews. This is Crossover, issue number 1. This is the creative powerhouses behind the best-selling, critically acclaimed God Country, Thanos Wins, and Redneck as they return for the biggest launch of the year. And it definitely lived up to that premise. I talked about that a couple episodes back of the podcast of the sales and everything, the pre-sales. This is from Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw, Ryan Stegman. Ryan Stegman does the... I wonder if he contributes some art in here. Based on the previous thing, they threw his name. I have the variant cover, but maybe he just did do the variant. So this here is the variant cover of Crossover. I had to get this one because it has a Madman comic appearance over in the corner. What this series is, I went into it completely blind, but I'll give you a little synopsis off the top of my head. This is basically what happened if comic books, as we're reading them right now, we've all been reading them all week long. We're talking about them here in this podcast. But what happened if there was a huge explosion over the city? Here's a giant splash page. We're looking like it's like the Rainbow Bridge is thrown up all over Asgard or something. What happened if all of our comic book history blew up into our world and attacked it? Did you have a copy of that too there, Kirby? Do we have a couple people reading it?
Yeah, looks like 3 people have read that one.
I always have my screen up on the big one, so when I see like books coming up, I have to look to see what's going on there. So okay, cool. So this is what happens when comic books are showing up in our world, and we see a lot of death and destruction and war and uncertainty and all of this stuff that's going on, and it basically does like a huge jump cut to the current time, and we see a girl that's walking around. She's wearing a domino mask. She's walking past a what I think is a billboard. It says "God hates masks," and there's all this crazy stuff going on as we're trying to figure out what has happened in this world since that huge explosion. We see like a religious group that are protesting the idea of these comic books, and as she walks into a comic book store, we the story calms down a little bit because there's a lot of destruction and craziness in the outside world. But when you head inside of a comic shop, it seems like it's kind of everyday business. There's definitely a lot of people in the shop at the moment. But this story focuses on one person that's in the shop, which I don't want to talk about, even though spoilers are welcome. This is something like if you were waiting to read it, or if you heard about it, now you're hearing us talk about it. There is a character that is inside this shop that basically kind of causes panic, not only on the inside, but as well as the outside, that really accelerates what the rest of this issue is going to be. And that's kind of the non-spoiler setup I want to do for it. I absolutely love this. I heard it's going to be an ongoing book. So that excites me even more. Donny Cates, who's just on fire with everything that he's been writing, both independently and over at Marvel. He likes to play the long game. He's currently the longest writer on the Venom title, and he just has the big Null story is coming up. I forget what the title is right now, but it's coming up soon in December. And somebody had asked, like, "Oh, is this your final story to Venom?" He's like, "Oh no," he's like, "We're not done with Venom." So like every time he comes up with like something big and huge that really does feel like here is the creative teams, they're throwing everything out on the plate as their swan song, and they're passing along the title to someone else. That's the way Donny Cates writes, is that everything always just seems so huge, and to think that it's just one small piece of the puzzle gets me excited to read a Donny Cates book. To kick it off, I will throw this. I was laughing so loud. So I listened to the Stegman and His Amazing Friends podcast, which is hosted by Ryan Stegman, and Donny Cates, his Venom co-partner there, is often on most of the episodes. And they always talk about the love of chains. Talk about the fact when you look at like the 90s characters and how they're all covered in chains and things like that. I just want to give that little premise there before I read the opening quotes of crossover issue 1. From the author Frederick Wortham, Seduction of the Innocent, there's a quote that says, "The world of the comic book is the world of the strong, the ruthless, the bluffer, the shrewd deceiver, the torturer, and the thief. In comic books, life is worth nothing. There is no dignity of a human being." And the second pull quote is, "Kids love chains, Todd McFarlane." And I saw that. I had to physically put the book down because I was laughing. I mean, it's funny just when you hear this big, very philosophical quote, but then you just get that simple one there. And but going back into the podcast and how they're always referencing chains and things like that. And Donnie Cates is a huge Todd McFarlane fan, so it's not just like making fun of him or anything. It's just it's a nice roast to a friend and stuff. But right when I read that, which has nothing to do with this actual story, I'm like, okay, I'm loving this book. So crossover number one, that is my take on it. Either you want to jump in and say what you thought about this?
I like the premise where that the superheroes show up and nobody hates anything else except superheroes. It doesn't matter if you're gay, racism is gone. Everybody just hates superheroes.
Yeah, it's all this collective understanding.
And it's not just comic books that are gone. It's just superhero comics because the government's still writing Western comics and detective comics, but
yeah, there was a scene in there with someone, bringing up this cowboy. Was it like a rawhide? Yeah, the rawhide kid. But yeah, that kind of, and cops and everything. So yeah, but then the comic book store, I assume the owner is, these are government approved and mandated corporate comics designed to eliminate the stigma of capes and masks. Marvel and DC died when Colorado died, man. Catch up.
Guess I better throw my costume back in the phone booth.
Yes. Kirby, you read this as well?
Yeah, I had no idea what I was going to be reading, but you talked it up, so I ordered it, and I really liked it.
Okay, good.
I don't want to give a synopsis of it or anything because I know I'll be totally wrong how I took it.
Plus, I don't think they gave much of synopsis now that I look at it.
It's like you got a comic book store full of people. Aren't they reading superhero-style comics that they're looking at?
It's basically existing within this comic shop. That's why you got all of the protesters and stuff on the outside. So yes. in this world, that's like their own basically their safe place. That they're still living the dream and the love of the superheroes. And
yeah, that's why I was kind of surprised when everybody runs out of the shop, but I'm not going to say anything on that. But.
Yeah, it would make sense that in a world that hates superheroes, that there would be a comic book store full of superhero comic books. I mean, we have a lot of superhero comic books, and I'm a huge fan of superhero comic books. But over the years, the number of superhero comic books versus other things has really evened out a little bit more. And I think a lot of that other stuff has actually overtaken the superhero comic books. But what are in those other comic books? We've got comic books featuring stories of race and gender inequality and falling in love with someone or something that's not acceptable in our normal society. So it makes sense that in a story where the world hates superheroes, you would have a comic book store full of superhero comic books.
And there's lots of comic books that don't care what color, creed, or anything that you are. They just want to kill you.
Yeah, and once again, without going into detail of the reason why they all ran out, it might just be it's one thing to be living in your fiction and everything, but to maybe come across a quote unquote real life monster or something very unnatural to your normal world that might maybe cause a little panic. But yeah, that is interesting, because they all do kind of barrel out of there. But
otherwise, it's like going into Tell 'em Steve Dave's comic book store. Guys yelling at a guy about his types of comics. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to more of these. See where it goes.
Yeah, it's I was just blown away because I think it really took a lot of people by storm, and it has a nice thing at the very end, which I'll send a picture over to David because you don't have have the book in front of you here. So just to kind of give you a little something in here, maybe that'll be a selling point. But yeah, and already they're just going all out. There's like merchandise. I know there's shirts and stuff up on their online shop, and Donnie Cates has his own podcast, and the Ryan Stegman one, shirts, patches, pins, and more. They're just branding. The whole back of this is all just advertisement for Donnie Cates, and he's on fire.
Yeah, I think this would have been a good club pick.
And we do have 3 of our people, because I didn't know either of you guys got it. So when we go into issue number 2, we can definitely usher it into a club discussion, and then actually go back.
Anyways.
But like going into more details. I think this really does a good service to people that have heard about the hype, maybe were questioning about it, to kind of leave some of that mystery in there. But I think once we do issue 2, issue 1 is already out, so then we'll go in and talk about that thing in the comic shop. So, and
the narration in here is great, especially the opening pages. How they talk about how our real world sees comic books, and they actually reference Superman. Now the characters that appear are not other comic characters, but they talk about Superman. And then this box in particular, and even the most successful of you will never have made as much of an impact on this world as the fictional character of Superman.
Yeah, it's I'm excited to reread it again now too, and I look forward to our future club discussion into details. So,
and this is a good, well-made book. It's a nice heavy cover.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, and this one's from Image compared, and then Inkblot was from Image too. And it's not just Image that's doing this. This book is more substantially made than the other ones are too.
Yeah, this might be I don't know if that has anything to do with like Donnie Cates just being like, yep, put it all in there, I'll cover any, whatever. Like, I don't know if any of that plays into it. Having such an established creator such as himself, compared to the people in Inkblot who are kind of on the rise and kind of making their big splash with that one. This is Donnie Cates has done this several times over now, not only at Image, but with all the stuff he's done at Marvel. So maybe some of that fame plays into the fact of being like, no, we're having, cardstock covers, we're, throwing it all out there. And this was, I was looking at what the price was on here. Yeah, it was a $3.99 book too. So it's not like you paid $4.99 for a hardstock cover. So, I think that'll do it there. I don't want to say too much more. So if you're interested in crossover, I think you got 3 people here that say that you should probably check it out, and you can come back in a month and we'll talk about issue number 2. Yeah, I'm
looking forward to this one now too. They got an ad for another book that he's writing called Blood.
Yeah, this one
interesting.
And what's cool, Megan Hutchinson is his wife. I think she's on the writing side. But yeah, this is something that I know is not in the previews yet. So I think this was like the first really reveal of that. It says coming soon. So we'll probably see that in 2021 there. But yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, that'll do it from my and Jim and Kirby's review of crossover number 1. Well, let's jump over to David.
Johnny.
All right. Well, I guess as we were talking about what we have in non-superhero comic books today, my first one up here is good, and I think Anthony has read this in single issue form. But I recently read the first volume of Alex and Ada, or Alex plus Ada. I believe it's supposed to be and, which is a comic book about this guy who lives in the not too distant future, and we have robots, androids, is a common part of society. They've recently been improved upon, and their artificial intelligence has got to the point where they were reaching the point of being sentient. And this caused some problems. There was a massacre, and all these rules were implemented to protect people from this ever happening again. So all the androids, then they initiated certain rules. Now, if you've seen, I'm trying to think of the actual name of what it's based on. But
iRobot?
versions like iRobot. Yeah, if you've seen iRobot, which is based on another book, Dreaming of Electric Sheep, something I can't think.
Great robot.
X-ray robot? Is that what you said?
Oh, it's not
Electric sheep.
not that robot. What's the name of it? Something like do robots?
Isaac Asimov wrote iRobot, and then I think Dreams of Electric Sheep came later, but yeah, they both have similar premises.
Okay.
Dreams of Electric Sheep is written by Philip K. Dick, and it actually is the inspiration for Blade Runner.
Okay.
When you said, I thought you were just joking.
But no, but related books that have that kind of theme where they implement rules. Like iRobot, they've got like the 3 laws, and it's very similar in Alex and Ada, the things that they implement, and like when the robot here, who is Ada, she mentions some of the things that she can't do. She doesn't list them as being like, these are the rules and quoting these or whatever. But some of the things that she says that she can or can't do throughout the conversation where she meets Alex are very similar to those rules. So anyways, he's about 7 months out of a breakup. He had been engaged, and he's still not over this. It's his birthday, and he goes to a party, and there's people who are talking to him, all his friends and everything, but he feels very alone. And there's even one of his friends that's clearly interested in starting a romantic relationship with him, and he seems kind of oblivious to it. His grandma has a robot. A robot lover really is what she's very. She's not secretive about what she does with her robot. And so she's talking to him about maybe he should get one of these. If he finds someone, he can always like put her in the basement or whatever. And he's very much against it. At the same time, he does have these implants, and not everybody is cool with this, but he's got these implants, and they kind of glow in his head when he's using them. So his like brain is connected. He doesn't have to like call someone on the phone or whatever. He just activates these things, and it just goes off of his thought. So that kind of technology he's cool with, but something about these robots, he's not really, that's not what he wants to do. So his grandma gets him one for his birthday anyways, and it is let's not talk about Anthony's relationships with other things. Let's continue.
As an audio podcaster, I don't know what you're talking about.
So anyway, he gets it. He calls his grandma. He complains about it. He's like, no, you shouldn't have got me this. He's going to return it. And then at the last minute, he doesn't. And he later says when he was going to return it, he suddenly felt like he was about to drown a puppy. you know. So he keeps it. He wants to keep it a secret, but a friend of his finds out about it and lets all of his other friends know about it. Now everybody knows that he's got this this robot, and they're all questioning, like, what is he going to do with it? The assumption being that he will be, you know, that this is like a very expensive sex toy. And he's like, no, no, no. And he's not sure what he wants to do. He just knows that he didn't feel right about getting rid of it. And as it goes on, he tries to do things with this robot and interact with it, but everything it says is like, you know, like, well, if you think it's beautiful, then it's beautiful. Or it laughs because he's laughing, even though it has no idea if something is funny. It just like, well, he's laughing, so she will laugh along. Things like that. And he realizes that he just can't enjoy having any kind of relationship with this robot, and he sees potential. There's an incident that's on the news where a robot had gotten a fake ID and went to a concert and was drinking, and something bad happened and a bunch of people attacked it because they were afraid that it was going to be another, you know, massacre incident. And it kind of dawns on him that, you know, these robots are capable of much more. And so he starts looking into it and really finding out that you can unlock their potential. And he finds some people who tell him that they can do this and they can help him with this if he makes the choice to do it, but warns him that it might not be what he wants. She, you know, might reject him and not want to have anything to do with him or whatever. And of course, it's against the law. So if he's doing this, he's breaking the law, which comes with serious penalties. And so it goes on, you know, in this volume about making that decision and what to do with Ada. This is the first 5 issues. I believe the series is 15 issues long, which can be bought in trade paperback form in 3 volumes, collecting 5 issues each. And Anthony, did you read this entire series?
Yep, as it came out in single issues, I've read the whole thing.
And I think you might have actually reviewed 1 or 2 of them on the
probably, yeah,
before. This, of course, is one of the ones that it wasn't really something that I would normally pick up off the rack, but of course, this is a leftover from when we had a comic book store, and now I have things that I wouldn't normally read that I'm reading, and I actually really enjoyed it. I looked at some of the reviews on it, and I was trying to see, because I wasn't sure how long it went for, but I saw that there was some criticism over the art was the big one, is that the art is too simple. And I agree with a lot of other people that even though it's a little bit more simple, it really works for this story and the style. I had no problem with the art. It's not the typical comic book art that me as a superhero comic reader normally looks for. If I had art like this in a Superman comic or whatever, it would throw me off. Although I have read one-shots or shorter stories that had art that was a little bit more of this style, that knowing it was a temporary thing or one story or whatever, I had no problem with either. But again, I was very interested in it, but I did like some of those other stories. I like sci-fi. I liked iRobot. And so I found this very interesting, even though there were a lot of similarities to those stories. And, I could kind of imagine where this was going to go. It still made me interested enough that I'm considering getting the other 2 volumes of this and seeing it through to the end.
Yeah, talking about the art, so the creators, Jonathan Luna and Joshua Luna, the Luna brothers as they're known, They've done a run on Spider-Woman, but they're mostly known for their independent work, which you see the similar art style, which every time I picked up a Luna Brothers comic, it felt very welcoming in that sense. None of them are connected, even though they all look like characters that, all exist in the same world based on their art style. But they've done the Sword, Ultra, and Girls, which are all collections that I just like devoured. And then they kind of broke off and did some of their own independent projects. There's things like Whispers, as well as Alex and Ada, and the current 20XX series. Before, let's all remember that this is a family-friendly podcast. So before anyone makes any jokes, I do have an Ada of my own Ada, and that is an actual original sketch of Ada that I requested when I met Jonathan Luna. He was at a Chicago comic shop, and I was first in line naturally because the Luna Brothers never did conventions and all. It was just something they never cared to do, and it was just being like, yep, 15 years that I've been collecting their work, I've never seen them at a con. And Jonathan Luna was in Chicago for a friend's birthday party, and the book was just coming out. I think the finale was just coming out, but they'd gotten a lot of success from it. So he just called some area Chicago shops and just like, hey, I'm in town, I don't normally do cons, can you want to do a signing or something? And so I went down there hours prior because I'm just like, man, this never happens. This is a last minute thing. Chicago, it's kind of in the middle of, a lot of people could be there. I have no idea. I get there and I'm a couple hours early and no one else is like sitting there. And I'm just like, well, I don't care. I'm like, I never thought I would be able to, meet the one half of the Luna Brothers. And what I didn't know, once he had showed up, he's like, oh, hey, you're first in line. I'm like, oh yeah, I got here a couple hours ago, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, really? Wow. And he's like, well, you get a free sketch. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I tweeted it out that whoever's first in line at my signings, I'll give them a free sketch. And I'm like, I didn't know that. He's like, well, now I'm glad you get this. You deserve it even more because you didn't even know about it. You showed up early to just to get signatures, So he had asked what I wanted, and I took some pictures as he drew Ada then. And we just talked about all of the comics that I had just mentioned. And, but yeah, it was pretty cool experience there. But yeah, this is for our YouTube viewers, the original sketch of Ada from Alex and Ada.
And I will say that while nothing about the story here is groundbreaking, simpler art and not a groundbreaking story, but it was well done, and and I enjoyed it. And I think that anybody who enjoys those types of stories, even though it's kind of in some respects more of the same, it's a little bit different twist on it, and entertaining. And so I would recommend to anybody who likes those stories to go ahead and pick this up. I think you'll enjoy this as well.
Yeah, and I think the pacing of the writing and the art is a benefit to like people, because I've used the Sword as a series to recommend to people that haven't read comics or always wanted to, and always looking for those good introductory points. And I think their style benefits a new reader in that sense. You're not being overwhelmed with direction and just the art detail where you're just not like don't know where to follow the word balloons.
Right, the flow of that, it was really easy to follow. In fact, Tammy, who has tried to read comics, but that's one of the things that throws her off, is not knowing how to read it, and so she just gives up. This is something that she would like for that reason.
Cool.
Hey,
All right.
Tam, I decided to read a comic other than Superman. Here's a sex robot comic. Check it out. Easy for you to read.
Well, but I will say that you brought up pacing, and I think that was the other thing that was criticized, was the pacing of it. But I thought it was actually an appropriate pacing for this story.
Yeah. I'd want to go back and read it now. I'm glad you liked it, because it's easy for me. Like me and I have another friend who's into the Luna Brothers and stuff, so we just usually go back and forth on that. So it feels good that our hype for it at least, lives up to you checking it out as well. So, all right, we will move on to Kirby for our next title.
I found one of the Coady and the Creepies in a random box, and luckily I found all 4 in the box after going through it. Punk trio Coady and the Creepies are determined to become the greatest band that's ever lived. There's only one problem. Their lead singer is technically dead. Punk's not dead, but Coady is. Sisters and bandmates Coady, Corey, and Chris are the Creepies, a trio of punk rockers determined to become the greatest band that's ever lived. And they got their little sidekick roadie that drives them around and stuff in here. And it was, did you read the whole series?
According to my filing, looks like I just read the first issue because I must have picked it up off the rack somewhere, but never came across it again.
Yeah, it's got decent artwork and stuff. Just nothing too fancy, but their little sidekick here that drives them around and sets up the band and everything. He comes across chimichangas for the first time and becomes addicted to those, a little over addicted, where he's gets to the point of filling a whole vehicle full of them, driving around. I don't know how he didn't end up getting sick off those, but yeah, Coady and the girl, well, the whole band basically gets in a car accident. One ends up in a wheelchair, and Cody's dead. She doesn't realize it. Throughout the travels, they're going out. There's like a battle of the bands thing, which is kind of cool how they do this battle, where you go from venue to venue, and every venue, as long as you play one song live at the venue, you get a pin, and then you collect all these pins, and whoever gets all the pins in the end wins or whatever. But they're working on their last couple pins in here, and there's a boy band that's, of course, got to be rude and chase after them and follow them around throughout this and be like right on their heels. But Coady, throughout the travels, she meets another character, and he basically explains to her and gets her to understand that she's a ghost, and he goes around and helps other ghosts basically move on, go do whatever. They get on to their next life. It's like in this book, they believe in reincarnation and stuff like that. So you could be reincarnated as any type of figure depending on what you're around. And a lot of these people, once they realize that it's time to go on and stuff, whatever figures there is what they become. So you see a couple of characters that get put into different animals and stuff like that in here. But yeah, this is a really fun little series. I had no idea what to expect. I seen the girl in the wheelchair and stuff and wanted to know a little bit more, seen the band on the cover. It's just something I found in a dollar box, and was like really happy to come across it and check it out. Yeah, that's basically the same thing. And their little thing that they have in here is following a tragic accident, the Creepies punk rock sisters Coady, Corey, and Chris are known, much to their annoyance, as the band who lived. What nobody realizes is that Coady didn't escape unscathed. She's actually a ghost. Can she keep her secret as the Creepies fight their way through a literal battle of the bands in a quest for the final Pinmageddon pin? That's what they call it. The Pinmageddon is the name of the whole battle of the band thing to get all your pins. But it was a fun little story. My boombox.
Yeah, and I saw Kat Lay, I think is her name, did the cover, at least the one I got, and I think when I have met her because she did did some series that I picked up, so I wonder if I saw that at her con table or something, maybe selling the issues or something. But yeah, never. It just probably got lost in the pile, and I never got to pick up the remaining ones. So
yeah, because the main people that worked on this was Liz Prince, Amanda Kirk, and Hannah Fisher.
Cool. All right. Well, I think it's time to go to a galaxy far, far away and check in with our Jedi Ambassador Frog Lady with our next comic here.
Hello, thank you. This week I am a Sith ambassador. Okay. Another week, another Star Wars comic with Darth Vader #7 from the 2020 run. This did just come out this week, so light spoilers might be possible. All right, last issue. Darth Vader basically got his butt kicked by the Emperor. Firstly, because the Emperor is a horrible person, and secondly, because he is angry at Darth Vader and feels like he is being very insubordinate and not really respecting the master-apprentice relationship. So the Emperor and his goons beat him up, and they drop him at Mustafar, the site of where he ended up becoming Darth Vader. And they basically just leave him there. They're like, find your own way back. Oh, and if you use the Force, we'll know about it, and we'll put you in even more hurt than you are in now. So Vader crawls back to the mining station and is putting himself back together with some mouse droids. And then a character that was mentioned in The Rise of Skywalker shows up. So we finally get to hear Ochi the assassin. If you remember from that movie, the trio was on Ochi's ship and they found a Sith dagger. So now we get to find out who Ochi actually was. And Ochi has been sent by the Emperor to fight Darth Vader. So him and Ochi have a fight throughout the lava fields of Mustafar. Something cool that I appreciated was it made a lot of references back to Revenge of the Sith, episode 3. Give it some more depth, and getting to see inside of Vader's mind and his very tormented psyche is always interesting to me. And then we have a new kind of monster creature introduced at the end, so I'm excited to see some more of that next issue. This Darth Vader run continues to be amazing. I really like it. For as many Darth Vader comics as Marvel puts out, they are still really, really good. Darth Vader #7 for some more lava hot action from Greg Pak and Phil Noto. Check it out.
I second everything she just said in that review. So, all right, we are jumping over to Jim for the next one.
All right, I have this graphic novel called Blue in Green. All right, there you go. And zoom in on that. That's kind of a strange looking picture in the middle. This is an unusual book. It is a story about a man finding himself in his history, and his family history, and also a strange monster thing going on in there. There's a blues he's kind of a failed blues or jazz musician who is teaching music, who has to go home when his mother dies, and he helps to help his sister clean out the house. In the midst of the funeral and cleaning up, he starts to learn more about his mom's past, and he finds a photograph that sends him looking into the history behind who this man is, and he learns about the man, and who the man was a jazz musician in New York in the 60s, who his mom apparently knew, and he finds out about the relationship and how this man got to be such a good musician. And it's kind of a deal with the devil, but it's not really a devil. It's more like this Cthulhu monster thing. And it's really, like I said, it's a strange story. But it's, and then he ends up making that same deal with the same monster and becoming like an overnight sensation, but it ends up costing him everything he knew in his old life. And it's got this watercolor artwork that it wasn't my favorite artwork, but it does fit the tone of like being a jazz, like less structured and everything. And then when you get to scenes of here, playing the music, this is like a poster for his premiere. And then you get to the scenes of the bargain. There you go. Where there's weird stuff going on. it's and then the title was really weird. It never did explain itself until almost near the very end, where somebody tells this guy that, oh, your eyes are turning green, where before, like the blues, just like the guy in the picture that his mom had, who ended up being his grandfather, he had green eyes as well. Now this man didn't, but his eyes turned green. So the blues in the green, so it's just, but a weird, I mean, I like the story. I think it moved too slow for a comic book. It would have been a better movie. So, but that was written by, I don't know, maybe Ram V, or is it 5?
I've heard Ram V. I've seen that
okay.
name pop up a couple times.
I've seen that name pop up several times, but I think this is one of the first books I've actually written or read, but written by him. So. And
you had talked about kind of like getting, having to like wait till the end on that thing. This is a graphic novel, right? It wasn't an individual issues?
I don't believe it was ever written as individual books.
Issues or anything. So yeah, that's just kind of interesting too, that, because I could see that if it was meant for single issues of just, if each chapter break had a certain build or whatever, but writing it as a graphic novel, really kind of holding that off to the end there is kind of an interesting, with me not, having read it or anything, but
this is some of the supplemental artwork in the back.
Cool.
But yeah, it was there are 4 chapters in the book, and they're not equal in size, so I imagine it wasn't written or wasn't chapterized like that. So, but yeah, I did enjoy the story. I didn't necessarily enjoy it as a comic.
So maybe you should get a video camera and videotape you turning the pages.
Make it into an animatic?
Yeah, and then add a soundtrack to it and give it a second. I don't know.
Know anybody that plays a saxophone?
Yeah, there was a character that I was in a comic book with that was a saxophone player. We were in different dimensions and everything, but I could probably get connected to him.
Okay.
As long as he's a purple person, so yeah.
There's purple people in here.
Otherwise, Lisa Simpson.
Yeah, there we go. All right. The next title that I have here is something that was definitely sold on the title alone. I am talking about Sasquatch in Love, issue number 1 of 4. Meet Holden. He's well-read, caring, and single. He's also the world's last Sasquatch. When Holden falls for Grace, the filmmaker who's come to rural Oregon to make a Bigfoot documentary, he enlists the aid of his best friend, who is local veterinarian Felix, to find out more about her. So I didn't read any of that synopsis. I just saw Sasquatch in Love. I see a cover of him being caught in the bushes, and he's startled. He's got a bouquet of flowers. He has, a heart box of chocolates, and somebody kind of caught, he's in sort of a kind of a Sasquatch type of, pose, a little homage to that a little bit, but he's kind of startled there. I just saw that. I'm like, yep, I'm in. And this is done by Jason Nutt and Alexis Vivalo and Josh Southall, creators I am not that familiar with. But if this book is any example of their work, I think I need to see what else they do. I highly enjoyed this. Basically, we find out that Sasquatch, who is Holden in here, has a human friend named Felix. That was kind of funny with this setup because the first page is very dramatic, very scary of Felix going through the woods and being startled, and you see some glowing eyes behind him, and kind of freaked out on who it was. And real quickly, Holden is just like, oh, hey, it's me. No biggie. And it's just the exact opposite tone and shift from. It was a perfect page reveal that's set up there. But basically, Felix is out getting his buddy Holden the Sasquatch a bunch of supplies. He's a big book reader, so he actually got him a bookshelf that he's got to put together. He basically kind of just drops off stuff for him throughout the days, throughout the weeks, from what I understand. But there are moments in here in which Holden the Sasquatch does need to go out and he wants to get more books. So he actually steals them from the library. And they kind of talk about being like, well, you can just check them out from the library. But he's like, well, I'm a Sasquatch. So it's just like, is that going to hurt? Is that going to work? So he decides it's much easier just to steal the books, but he does return them. That's the big thing. So, but nobody really knows that, about the Sasquatch. They only hear about the Sasquatch sightings, which leads to our other characters in which this documentarian and an assistant are going through, and this old guy who's destined to get footage of the Sasquatch. He finds out that in order to find him, he is going to dress up as a female Sasquatch in a female Sasquatch costume to really try to lure him in. And that's kind of your setup for this first issue.
Yeah, I don't see any way that could end badly.
This is just hilarious. I got to talk about that. There's a poetry contest that goes on in this town. In Cooper's Pines is the town, and there's somebody who has been anonymously submitting poems that I'll just leave it at that. That's a hint that nobody's going to find out who did that unless you read the book. So somebody out there is writing poems. We just don't know who. But yeah, there's a funny banner for an event here that they're advertising at the library. Yeah, it's Cooper's Pines 20th Annual Waffle Festival and Poetry Competition. Feed Your Body and Soul on September 25th. So that event, unfortunately, has now passed this year. I'm not sure what kind of COVID restrictions they had, but I'm looking forward to next September, and hopefully we can all meet for the 21st Annual Waffle Festival and Poetry Competition. Sounds like a good time to me.
Anthony?
Yes.
Was this a spin-off of Mr. Crypt?
Mr. Crypt, no, I wish. I think you could actually read it as a spin-off if you really want to connect those worlds. The Bigfoot character in there, yeah, there's a very similar tone. But yeah, you know what? In my head canon, I'm going to say that Mr. Crypt and Sasquatch in Love are both part of the Sasquatchiverse.
Y'all just sold a book and you were just kidding. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I made that connection. Having just reread Mr. Crypt #1 and reviewed that last week. He gets the job at the library, and I'm thinking, well, Holden could just go to that library and check him out. I'm sure Mr. Crypt could help him check out the book. And then Mr. Crypt has a friend who's a Sasquatch.
Yeah, it's maybe this is a prequel in which Felix will die in this story and become a skeleton.
Oh.
Hey, yeah, it kind of went a little dark there, but I think it might be all ages. I don't know. But I'm going to give this little thing here where this would be my last sell for the book. So Holden is asking his friend basically to try to set him up on this date with this human girl who he would love at first sight. And Holden goes, I'm the last of my kind, Felix. For a long time, I ignored the emptiness within me because I figured there was no one out there for me anyway. And now that I've seen her, I don't want her to be I don't want to be alone ever again. That's why I need you to find out as much about her as you can. Where is she from? What's her favorite music? Does she like tall guys with shaving issues? So yeah, that is my favorite little excerpt. That is Sasquatch in Love, issue #1 of 4. I cannot wait for the next 3. So there we go. That is from Action Lab, which I might not own any comics from Action Lab, so got to start somewhere. All right, David.
All right. So another book that I inherited from the store. Seems weird because I guess I owned it already.
Another book you own.
Still own. But this one is one that I wouldn't typically read. It's a little closer to being a superhero comic book, and yet not quite. And it's also one that I'm sure Anthony has read at least some of this stuff. Left over from the racks of the Crimson Cowl comic shop was a giant size Swamp Thing #2. So I picked that up and I read through that. Now, I know a lot of things about Swamp Thing. I'm familiar with the character. I have seen him in some of the books that I've read throughout the years, but I've never actually read a Swamp Thing comic book. Luckily, I'm one of those people that can just pick something up because this is an issue #2. But I found it easier than usual to jump into the story, in part because I know a little bit about the character, at least the main character, not necessarily all the side characters. But I didn't have a real difficult time jumping in. And like most of these giant size issues that you could find in the Walmart racks, and then they would come to the comic book stores later, this one had one new story made for this, and then others that were back issues from various things. Not all just Swamp Thing. There's a Hellblazer in here, and there's a Zatanna story in here. So I jumped in and I read them story by story, and it really wasn't that difficult. And I don't think Swamp Thing is something that I would normally read. Sorry, Anthony. No offense. Just not my cup of tea. Not my cup of swamp scum. But I still found it very interesting. It gave me a little bit more insight to the character, because I'm sure that I'll read other comic books that will have Swamp Thing in it, as well as some of these other characters that I've only read little bits about. As the Phantom Stranger, which just he popped up on like 2 pages of this, and that's about all he ever pops up in anything. Constantine, I haven't read any of his stuff, but I've seen him pop up here and there. Black Canary, Vixen, Zatanna, and of course Swamp Thing. So all characters that I see periodically, popping up in some of the other DC books. But other than a page or two here, a page or two there, that's the extent of my reading history for those characters. Now, I wasn't quite sure on the first 2 stories here. There's a lot of talk about the death and decay and the meaning of all that, and how it's just a normal part of life. And so I wasn't quite sure if that's a normal Swamp Thing thing, or if this was a theme where they put this story in because it kind of had a similar theme to this one. And reading through it, my guess would be is it does tend to be a common theme with Swamp Thing stories anyways.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time to think to himself and think about life in general and life after death, and
Yeah, and part of it was, accepting who you are versus running away and hiding from it. And he's done both at times. The other thing that I kind of paid attention to, and I noticed this, is the different style that Swamp Thing is drawn. He's really changed from artist to artist. And sometimes he's just very simple and not a lot of vines and leaves and stuff on him. And then other artists draw him very detailed, where everywhere you look, there's a branch or a leaf or a flower or something growing off of him. And so, of course, this collected a variety of that, where you see a lot of those different versions of Swamp Thing, and a lot of times he's just kind of hiding in the shadows, or sometimes he's something in between. But he's also very recognizable either way as Swamp Thing. You look at the character, you know who he is. Here's a version where, if you look at it, a lot more lines and details. You notice as you go through, sometimes, like I said, he'll have a flower on his shoulder or something like that. It was also nice in, because this one's from 2019, but you see a version where it was actually written by Len Wein, his creator, and the artwork in that version too, very simple, not a lot of vines and branches and everything else on there, and yet as you read the story in the different panels and you look at him, and it's very you can very much tell that it's still Swamp Thing. But I enjoyed it. It's not something that I would pick up regularly, but I thought it was something that was interesting and different for me. And yeah, I can definitely see the appeal that people have with that character.
I gotta say, I gotta give you a hand for really branching out. Thank you, everybody. Good night. And the next title is going to be from Kirby.
Checked out Supernatural's run. In 1998, Marvel published Brian Pulido, can't say his name, Mark Andreyko, and Ivan Reis from Supernaturals, a Halloween-themed comic that takes place on the alternate Earth designated Earth 98,091.
I remember that one, yeah.
Where most of the world's metahumans have disappeared. The series brought together a group of supernatural heroes dubbed the Supernaturals that included alternate versions of Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, Brother Voodoo, Jericho Drum, Werewolf, Jack Russell, Gargoyle, Isaiah Christian, Satana, Maria Ramos, and Ghost Rider, Jonathan Blaze. These heroes form a considerably more sinister version of the Avengers, and the series sees them battling the evil Jack-o'-lantern, who secretly manipulated the team into form in order to enact his evil plan. Well, first off, this is just a little preview tour book that has lots of little nice sketch things in here throughout it.
Coloring book.
Yeah, pretty much. And then all kinds of different pages from each different character's original comics and stuff like that. Lots of little things about the different writers and all that are in here and stuff. But it's a nice little previews books. Then you get into the actual 4-run comics, and these are really nice comics. And you have your standard, I call it McFarlane artwork myself, but it looks a lot like that. Then lots of little fold out pages and stuff, giving you extra stuff to go on. Anthony would love these, but I hate how they did these because it makes no sense that they didn't make this the centerfold, but every one of them has a character mask that you can pop out. But they put it only a few pages in, so it's you got to rip the comic apart to get it. You're going to have to take the metal pins out of it.
Sounds like you need a second person. So if it was me and on one side and Kurt on the other side.
Yeah, I was going to recommend Kurt. He would probably help you do that. He can hold an end.
But I mean, it's just loaded with tons of extra bulletins, talks, and all that stuff in here. But other than that, the story's kind of interesting. I do not understand the whole basis of this fully because you learn, and there are just tons of characters throughout these books. And you get Dracula, you get the Mummy, you get all of them, and there's Wolfman's little pop out. But it goes into also bringing in, I mean, basically it talks about the chaos event, which I don't understand because they spell it with I lost it. Here it is. Okay. Last week, Brother Voodoo gathered the reluctant teens from around the country and revealed to them their true destinies. While they struggled with these startling revelations, the mastermind behind the Chaos event, the Jack-o'-lantern, released evil forces at the New York Natural History Museum, forces that include reanimating dinosaurs, cavemen, demons, and the living mummy. I mean, it's anything supernatural you can think of is pretty much in these books. But when they talk about the Chaos event, which is mentioned multiple times in here, they spell it Chaos with the exclamation point at the end, which is Chaos Comics. So I took it that it came out the Chaos event, but this is Marvel Comics that did this. So I don't know. They don't really cross over. You don't see any of the Chaos characters or anything. And I know it became at the end of the one period in the 2000 was when Chaos ended and changed to the next thing. And that's when Megadeth happened and wiped all the superheroes and all that stuff out. So I'm guessing that's what they're playing with, that they a little crossover on the events. But yeah, you got what's the character, Brother Voodoo, who basically him and his brother see his mom and dad basically lynched by a mob, calling them witches and stuff, and they burn the house down, kill the parents off and stuff, and the two brothers get away, and one becomes Brother Voodoo. And I suppose this is from 1998, so I can spoil away. Jack-o'-lantern is basically the other brother. And I don't know much about those characters, so I've seen Jack-o'-lantern before, but nothing about Brother Voodoo. So I don't know if those storylines basis go off that and stuff. You got Jack Hubert's little school things in each one of the books too, Anthony. I know you're in the
Joe Kubert
and all that stuff, or Joe Hubert. But yeah, they basically Jack-o'-lantern's going after them, and Brother Voodoo goes and finds each one of those characters, Werewolf by Night and Black Cat and Gargoyle and all them, just picks them out of there where they're at, takes them back, gets them all together in one area and explains to them what has to be done. So they all help him work on it, but then like Jack-o'-lantern somehow gets the Werewolf by Night character separately and takes him and does some stuff to him and makes him one of his minions and stuff, and then puts him back in the fold so he can screw him over later and stuff. But it goes into some giant monsters pop up in here, which are interesting. You got, I don't know if you guys know any of these, but yeah, Grudo, which looks like a giant gorilla type thing, Gargola, Droom, which is a giant lizard, a giant ant creature that's called Gratu, Moomba, Grog.
Well, Grog's is that like a stone like looking character?
He's like a gargoyle also.
How did
gargoyle?
How did they get a Moomba in there? I mean, I thought they were all like names starting with a GR sound.
No, Moomba's that character there. I don't know what he's supposed to be, but he's in Tokyo, Japan. And then Moomba and Roomba. And
Roomba.
Then you also
He's
got
like a vacuum cleaner thing that goes around. And
you also got Groot. He's one of the giant creatures. But yeah, it's a really fun story. They talk about hopefully going on a little bit further, but I don't think they ever did do any more with this group. But yeah,
I think those only came out on Earth 9,567.
there actually was a different version of the Supernaturals that was actually in our world. A little side story going back to my real life superhero days.
With all their characters.
There actually was a project that we did, and a team called the Supernaturals. because I have a variety of interests, and some of it is the paranormal and things like that, also filmmaking. So me and some of these other people were working on an idea and trying to sell it. We actually did talk to a few people. Some of you know that I had been sought out for some potential reality series based on a real life superhero thing, and we were trying to sell them on a little bit different idea that was sort of a cross between sort of a ghost hunters type thing and this real life superhero thing, and it was called the Supernaturals. And I just pulled up the set on here. It was the Supernaturals mixes the strangeness of the real life superhero subculture with the world of the paranormal. The Watchmen and Razorhawk assemble a costume-clad team of quirky do-gooders to seek out the truth, delving into the depths of forests, buildings, and other locations in the search for ghosts, cryptids, and UFOs. Together with experts in these fields, they'll travel from location to location in an ongoing investigation into the paranormal as only superheroes can. But of course, nothing happened with it, so here I am.
Were you part of the chaos exclamation point event at all, or
No, and maybe that was the problem. Maybe had
never
we
happened?
been involved with that, this might have taken off.
All right.
Kirby, what year was that?
1998.
98. Okay, thanks.
Cool. All right. That will do it for the weekly review segment. We have one more section for the news. All right. Save. This will be the independent previews. We are recording audio. Here we go. Welcome to part 2 of our previews preview for the independent titles and the merchandise and apparel and all that fun stuff for products coming out in January and beyond. And speaking of beyond, this is an advanced order for a graphic novel sequel in March that I could not be more excited for. This is from Brenna Thumler. We are talking about Delicates. Yes, this is the follow-up to Sheets, starring our boy Wendell the Ghost. I am so pumped up for this. Marjorie's life hasn't been the same ever since she discovered a group of ghosts hiding in her family's laundromat. Wendell, who died young and now must wander the earth as a ghost with nothing more than a sheet for a body, soon became one of Marjorie's only friends. But when Marjorie finally gets accepted by the popular kids at school, she begins to worry that if anyone learns about her secret ghost friends, she'll be labeled as a freak who sees dead people. I am so pumped up for this. This was I believe, was scheduled to come out earlier. This was announced, I think, in like a free comic book day backup like 2 years ago, I think. So I think it was meant for this past summer. Perhaps COVID just kind of put all that off on the side. But all I know is that it is now up for order for March. Delicates. I am so ready, and I'm excited to revisit Wendell and reread him in the coming months in preparation for this. All right. When I throw it over to you, David, will you have any picks, or will we?
I've got nothing. No, I haven't looked through previews. I'm just completely ignoring previews right now. So,
do you just recommend one of everything?
I do. I recommend that you buy one of everything. However, if you are actually going to buy one of everything, let me know. I'll contact Diamond. Maybe I can work something out for just a one-time arrangement.
Get back in the business. All right, we'll jump over to Kirby.
I'm looking through them right now.
All right, Katie.
All right. Yes. So from Image Comics, one of my favorite series is starting up again. We have Monstress number 31. Talked about this quite a bit, and I'm excited to see it coming back. Yeah, that's actually the only new comic I have from the indies, unless you pick a club pick. So Monstrous number 31, and go read 1 through 30 while you're at it.
Good. Jim.
I've got another post-apocalyptic story called Scout's Honor, new number 1 from Aftershock Comics. This one, years after the nuclear apocalypse, a new society has risen from the ashes, and their Bible is an old Ranger Scout manual. And so that's the premise of this one. So,
Okay. Over at Archie Comics, I'm excited for, I believe, this one shot. It is the Southside Serpents, issue number 1. F.P. Jones is worried for the future of the Southside Serpents. The biker gang is getting old and finding it hard to attract fresh blood. But FP has a plan, and it revolves around his son, Jughead. Hunted by the most fearsome biker gangs in the States, an unwilling Jughead has to step up into the role of leader to guide the Serpents on a hold on, there's a word I've never seen before. Perilous journey? Does that sound right? There will be cool. There will be adventure. There will be thrills. There will be chases. There will be a bunch of stuff. But this is a one shot, and I think it's this is the one that exists within the CW Riverdale universe of comics that kind of just tie in, or kind of lost episodes, if you will, based on the cover art here and looking at the characters. I think this must be the CW version of the comics, but I'm excited for that, and that comes out in January, and that's when the new seasons for that and other CW shows start. So that is Southside Serpents, issue number 1 from Riverdale. Kirby, you got anything?
I don't have anything up in front of me, but I do know that they have the best of Leonardo out here for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The third one's out.
Yeah, part of the series from IDW there, so good. All right, Jim.
From Boom Studios, there's a new one coming called The Last Witch. And this is called a modern fairy tale, and it's based on some Celtic legends of a witch who hunts children, and a girl named Circe and her brother have to go out and fight her.
Cool. All right, my next one, I was very excited from the setup of this. Is called Soulstream, issue number 1. Scout Comics is proud to introduce ultra-talented 16-year-old comic creator Seda Wolf's new title, Soulstream. Marie and Marcus discover an alternate dimension known as the Mirror World, where their entire city has been destroyed and replaced by a volcanic wasteland. Marie is contacted by the mage goddess, who gives her a magical ocean bracelet that transforms Marie, allowing her to control water as superhero Soulstream. Enjoy the first issue of this nonstop. Nonstop is capitalized. I don't know if that's an imprint or something. Followed by the entire story collected soon after in one volume. Interesting. I think they must kind of throw out like one shots, and then maybe just that's like a preview for a graphic novel purchase, maybe. But yeah, I saw this as its suggested retail price for $1.99, and when it said it's from a ultra talented 16-year-old comic creator, I figured for $2 I can help support that young comic creator's career. So I'll give that a shot. That is Soulstream, and that is from Scout Comics. Anything else, Kirby, or are we?
Well, from Grim Fairy Tales, they got a one-shot presenting Van Helsing Hellfire one-shot. Van Helsing has dealt with it all, from cursed creatures and undead beings to interdimensional travel and the underworld itself. But when a new threat arises in the form of the Hellfire Club, a cult demon worshippers determined to tear our world down, Liesel must rely on every skill she has at her disposal, as well as her highly inventive intellect, if she hopes to survive what is coming her way. I'm assuming this is off that Hellfire Club that I read it like a couple episodes ago I mentioned. Guessing this goes more with it. So.
Cool. Anything else, Jim?
My last one from this catalog is from Image Comics. It's called Ha Ha #1. This is written by probably somebody Anthony's familiar with, called W. Maxwell Price, writer of Ice Cream Man.
Oh, okay. I didn't recognize the name, but now that you said Ice Cream Man, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a collection of stories, and it is drawn by a variety of artists. Each story is done by somebody different, and they're all clown themed. Circus clowns, whatever, so there's just a wide range of clown stories.
Cool. And it all comes in one compact small car, right?
One small comic book. So normal price comic.
Cool. And to finish off, mine is actually an advertisement for a Funko Pop vinyl. This is a new line. It's called Vinyl Soda. I don't know whatever it is. All I know is that it's Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's a kind of toy that looks like the character without it being distorted, like he's fit for whatever model this vinyl soda type thing is. But yep, I realize I don't have an Oogie Boogie character action figure or anything around the house, so I definitely need to add this character to the lineup. So that'll do it for my previews. Anything to finish it off, Kirby?
I don't have it in front of me, but just for the vampire fans, they have a Dracula Vlad the Impaler graphic novel by IDW that I know is on my list. But...
Cool. All right, well, that'll do it. Make sure to tell your comic shops that you want these items, filling out the previews. They can get that shipped and set aside and all that fun stuff for you, so you don't miss out on your favorite stories and merchandise and apparel and all of that. Let's see. So our next club pick won't be showing up for a few weeks here, which is X-Ray Robot #4. We'll talk about that the first week of December, it looks like, the first weekend. So that will mean the return of the letters page we'll see in the next couple issues, as well as the weekly reviews. We have a bunch of different podcasts that you can follow, not only the Crimson Cowl Comic Club that you're listening to right now, whether it be through iTunes podcast and the YouTube channel, Crimson Cowl Comics on YouTube. That should get you to the channel there. And then David, you and I co-host a show. What is that show called?
It's Over the Hill. No, Under the Cowl. Under the Cowl.
That's it. So yeah, if any of the club members are listening, we record that on Wednesday nights. And hey, maybe if there's a fan listening, maybe get a special guest or something. More voices welcome in a podcast where we just kind of talk randomness and see where the conversation takes us for an hour. And that's for the very mature audiences.
Very.
All right. And then speaking of Under Cowl, there was another podcast with that name and a couple more words after it. Kirby, what's your podcast?
I think we should change it, the other one, to Under the Cowl and Over the Over the Hill. Under the Cowl of MS is my podcast that I got going.
Cool. And then I'm going to have a brand new podcast called Through the Woods that will debut directly after those other podcasts. Not really. But yeah.
Jim, what is your podcast?
What's a podcast?
I said, and Jim, what is your podcast? I thought we were going.
What's a podcast?
What is one? Is anybody doing a grandmother's house podcast at all?
Well, I could.
Yep, Shelly will be debuting her podcast. Okay, so I think that'll do it. Oh, the one other thing, if you still want to be in the Halloween spirit, the Halloween special for the AP Conversation, the podcast I did for 300 plus episodes prior to the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. We did a special episode. We've been off the air for a couple years, but we jumped in for a very spooky episode. That's the Halloween 2020 special of the AB Conversation. Check that out for movies, television, games, comics, and food. All of that stuff is talked about in that oversized annual. All right. So there we go. That is going to do it for this podcast. So follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, review, all of that stuff, whatever you can do. Keep listening to us, and we'll keep listening to you, I guess. In the letters pages, we'll keep listening because everybody's sending in all those letters and everything. So, all right. That is going to do it for this issue. This entire time, I've been an NBA player wearing a shag carpet.
Aw, monkey meat. I'm fine.
Strike first. Strike hard. No mercy.
I'm Frog Lady.
Why are we talking about Tide Pods?
To be continued.